So 2014 was in the fall of 2014. It was actually in October. That day, I'm just driving, start feeling chest pains, really struggling so bad that I was able to seek medical attentions. And I got to the hospital and I was really overwhelmed when, told, hey, I'd had a massive heart attack.
Hey, welcome back to Like-Minded Servants with me, Cecil Graves, where leaders and entrepreneurs come to get better every day. If you missed our last episode, you don't necessarily have to pause this one, but you may want to pause it and go back and listen to the start of a powerful story, powerful walk since 2010 with Mr. Hollis Milton. So we're back today with Hollis, and I can't wait to dive into at least these 4 questions that I had for him, but it could lead to other places. So how are you, Hollis?
I'm doing well. And I'm looking forward to the quiz. There's 4 questions, right?
All students at school hear this all the time, and you're finally back in the testing center. Oh my goodness. Mine are going to be easy. When we ended last time, we were talking about a student that you helped mentor and take in. I just want to say thank you again for being vulnerable, like what you're doing, even with your dad now, and sharing that story a little bit. Just because I'm sure there's parents out there that can't have children, or maybe having difficulty there, but leaning in and helping another child is not about us. Right? You didn't do that for Hollis. It's about what it's going to do for that other soul, that other individual. So go back, listen to that episode, and listen to Hollis's story. When we sit down for lunch at the Francis a month or so back, my time is horrible, but I think it was a couple of months back, I heard this statement that you said, everywhere I go, whether it's a billionaire, a millionaire, a pastor at a church, the people that were teaching me about, the insurance industry when I changed over to this industry. But you said, I've got to really control the controllables. I think it's always, just because this makes sense to me, I never go over this and leave it behind when I'm talking to men in my mastermind. If I'm coaching someone, I always stop here because it's such a simple thing once they hear it. But tell us what control the controllables means to Hollis and how you practice that daily.
Yes, sir. And thank you again for allowing me to come on today. Really appreciate it. Control the controllables. I try to remind my team, and I have to remind myself of this because it always starts with you, yourself first, and making sure that you're staying focused on those things that you can control. And it's simple, and yet we all get tempted and we move away from that, and we worry ourselves about things that we can't control. And where that, and that's to a certain level, it's normal, and it's being human, being vulnerable. Where it becomes a challenge for an organization or leadership, or as we move forward, if we begin to focus on those things that we can't control, they become distractions and tangents. And what we really need to do is remind ourselves, let's stay focused on our fundamentals, what we know brings a good service to our customers, to our clients. And when we do that, we will do that so well that eventually those other things will take care of themselves. And by the way, just as a reminder, we don't control them anyhow. So let's control the things that we can control. Let's stay focused on those. Let's be disciplined about it. And we win the long game. And it's always in life, you're trying to win the long game. It's about helping people. And sometimes it takes a while to see an improvement take place and move your organization. But if you stay focused on that and you control those things that are a part of the ingredients to the success, it will come out, and it will come out the way that you want it. And sometimes you're even surprised because many times it comes out better than you ever thought it would.
100%, 100% agree. And controllables are what we talked about in the other episode is taking a few days a week and greeting the parents as they pull up and, drop their kids off with you. That gives me as a parent so much confidence and trust to pull away knowing, man, he runs the school and he is out here alongside teachers on maybe a rainy morning or a cold morning, making sure little Timmy or little Billy, gets to his classroom. Okay. So don't think of, people that are listening, don't think of controllables as they need to be Hollis is sitting down to do an Excel spreadsheet on the good teachers, the bad teachers, the good students, the bad students. All that stuff happens with a team, but he's focused on how do I win my day? And to start my day, what do I need to do? I start it with God. I get to school, I meet and greet. I see a parent in the grocery store, I make eye contact, I smile, I speak to them. That's controlling the controllables. Are there any things during the day, Hollis, that as basically a business owner that you are, because you're leading a team, you're dealing with, students and parents, are there any specific things that Hollis does daily that are just absolutely, they have to be done every day? They make everything else happen.
Absolutely. Start off with a prayer every morning. Showing gratitude, being grateful for the day, asking God
Mm.
for wisdom as you make decisions through the day that are upholding, bring the glory to God. And I do a to do list every day. I'm very very big on a to do list, and that sort of helps you control that agenda. And on that to do list, sometimes is I haven't done parent carpool. I didn't get a chance to do it on Monday or Tuesday, but today I'm going to do it. I'm going to make time to do it. And I think that agenda helps you recognize what are your priorities, what do you want to be intentional about, and you have to be intentional to get to the place that you want to be, that you want your organization to go. Everything is about being extremely intentional, and I think that drives things. And it's a good model for our folks, for my organization, for my employees, for the folks that I am directly in contact. That's my leadership team. Is to say, I always make sure that I have an agenda, because without it, I'm likely to be unfocused and to be driven on tangents that aren't part of the core mission, that aren't going to be successful or be the best way about going about things. And on that note, as a part of that agenda, I'm always looking at it from, yeah, there's things that we need to do to be better at processes and efficiencies, but there's also things in that agenda that just say, hey, I need to make sure I call that person, because I know that that family, and they're dealing with a tragedy in their family or an illness. Those things need to be on the list too, because with any success that you have, all your success begins with relationships. So make sure that that agenda is diversified about relationships and what can you do to lift others up, and then also have those things that are efficient, and then sort of like Stephen Covey, any of
Mm.
those strengths, what are those quadrants that you need to look at, and what's immediate, what's most important. But I think by focusing that way, starts your day off, and it feels good at the end of the day. You may not be able to put a check in every one of those boxes. That is very hard to do, but I think you can feel good that I put a check in quite a few of these boxes today that were extremely important. And you know what? Tomorrow's a brand new day. What I did not get accomplished goes back on that agenda the next day. And I think it's just a very healthy, functional way of feeling good about your efficacy, about the work that you do, is saying those prayers morning and evening, and beginning those prayers with gratitude. I try to start with that. I am going to get to all the prayers for maybe what I'm struggling with or what I'm seeing others struggle with, but it's always good to start off with gratitude, and having that to-do list that comes along with it every day, for me, makes me feel successful in leading the organization.
Yeah, I'm big, big, big on gratitude. And I sat on the front row of church this past weekend, and when he was telling us, "Hey, let's bow our heads, we're gonna pray," I stopped and I said, "I'm not gonna ask for anything." I'm so somewhat tired of Cecil leaning forward with what is on Cecil's agenda, what Cecil needs, help my team, help this, do for me, like I've got a genie in a lamp that's going to pop out. And I just said, stop me, from that. And I just want to tell you, I'm grateful, and put me in a powerful situation today. Put me somewhere where I can help somebody and that I can answer someone else's prayer, because I'm so grateful for everything that you've done for me. And it's just, that's the intentional part in our mind, that we have to stop and reprogram ourselves to go, hey man, everything that I have is because of him. I'm grateful for my team. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my kids. Let's just do that. Let's just be grateful for that. And that's exactly what it does right there. It makes you smile, because he loves us so much. He intentionally brought you to West Feliciana in 2010. He aligned all those conversations to happen. You can look back and see so much of that now, where maybe at the moment, you couldn't. Stephen Covey, in a lot of these books, if y'all don't know the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if you're new to self-development, that's a go-to book. If you didn't take anything from what me and Hollis talk about today and in our last episode, you can go research Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He's got it for students, for teenagers. I know my 7-year-old, we have a 7-year-old storybook that's kind of put in her, what am I trying to say here, Hollis? Put in her age group, I guess, to understand through animals, squirrels and rabbits and stuff, what he's trying to teach them about the highly effective habits that they can develop even at an early age. Because from what I have found is we're being told we've got to reprogram our mind and things based off of how we grew up when we're learning to be better. Well, what if we were intentional with doing things with those younger students that can teach them to not have to rewire so much, not be damaged so much, but actually put these things in them? And I have a question for you. Core values. Do you guys, are there like 3 or 4 core values that your staff? I'm only asking this because I listened to Grant Cardone the other day, and when they hire someone, they do a couple of interviews, but then they send them the company's core values, the 5, 6, or 7, and they tell them to elaborate on those core values, why they mean a lot to them, how they'll live them out at work. So I think core values are pretty strong. Do you guys have some core values that you lean into at the school?
Absolutely, and I'm so grateful. They were created collaboratively, but with really strong leadership from Abby Cochran, who's over all of our principals. And she came to me at one point and said, I'd like to put someone on a sheet of paper. I'd like for us to vet these, and then we can have conversations with those with our employees. And I will tell you, it reminds me a lot of what we've done with our students just with the 7 habits, because it's always good to remind everybody what are those core fundamentals that we're looking for. And so just as an example of one of those is just going above and beyond the expectation.
Mm.
We talk a lot about that with our employees, going above and beyond the expectation. And we describe that, we celebrate that, we recognize that when our employees do that. I think that's a big one in the service kind of business that we're in, where we're serving children and families, because everything you do that's above a minimal expectation or even a high expectation, if you're driven in that way, think about the impact that you have made for a family. And so we work on that a lot. And to me, I think that's one of the most important things we can do, is to say, you have to go all the way to another level. And I think that leaves longevity for a family. I think people are always going to remember how you made them feel when you roll out the red carpet for them, when you take extra time for them, when you spend time with them on an extra long phone call or whatever the conversation is, how you help their child. What did you do to be different? And that permeates our system. And I'll say it in this way: our bus drivers are incredibly awesome in the sense that they're the first person who sees our children in the morning. They're the last person who sees those children at home. I've seen our bus drivers do some incredibly above the expectation for families who were caught in a tough situation in the afternoon where they couldn't bring the child home. I've seen our bus drivers take our children to other spots, to bring them to workplaces, to do things that they just felt compelled to do because they had a relationship with the parent and they knew the family was in a tough situation. And anytime we can do that, what a springboard that
Mhm.
moves our organization,
Mhm.
in the service of families.
Yeah, that's a big word comes up as you're saying that is culture. They say, Cecil, how do you get the culture that you have at your office? Why does your team perform like that? And it's so important to understand it starts at the most basic level. It starts inside of the interview. Even when you're talking to the bus drivers, which sounds exactly like I don't know if you've been to Disney World, but they teach Disney World's bus drivers to even do that. Hey, when you bring people back home, they're wore out, they're yelling at their kids, they're spent, like they're ready to get off the bus. They're excited to get to the castle when they're entering the bus. So you are such a critical person. When we think of a bus driver, we just think, hey, man, they just need to do what they're supposed to do and just get the kids where they need to be. But they have such a powerful position because they are starting and ending almost the relationship every day with your students. So that has a big impact when you go give a student to a teacher. If the bus driver was, not in a good mood or wasn't real helpful to that student, then you set the teacher up almost for, hey, I'm 15 minutes behind the eight ball because the student's got to tell me about the experience with even the bus driver. You this since we're on the 7 habits of highly effective people, y'all are installing that and cultivating that in the school. What does that look like? Is it you're having one-on-ones with teachers? Is it everybody's doing some type of training? How are you getting that into your culture?
Absolutely. And going just to go back to that last conversation, you said something, and it just made me think, if we're going to ask our employees to go above and beyond for their students, for their families, their direct customer, it also is compelling that we model that, especially in leadership, as we're doing that for our employees. The more that we can do for our employees, and like you use that word culture, the more that we can show we will go above and beyond for them, it really leans forward and puts them in a really good spot to feel the same way about the customer. And
Mm,
I feel like that's a good example that we have to model. How do we go above and beyond? How can we do extra things? How can we customize? And that's a word that we use a lot in our culture is customization for our employees and our families and our students. We have lots of policies and procedures and a lot of consistency around that. And at the same time, when there's a special circumstance and it makes sense for a family, we always look at, is there anything else we can do to customize to make the experience better? And
mm,
also, can we learn? And if we learn from it, maybe we change our policy. Maybe we need to make some adjustments. And to move that into that direction of what you asked on the question about the 7 habits, we have 3 schools that are internationally recognized as lighthouse schools as models for teaching leadership skills to children. And we start off at the youngest ages of teaching what we call Leader in Me, and it's nothing more than the 7 habits of highly effective people, but it's age appropriate for kids. A great example is be proactive. Well, how do you explain that to a child? What is that? What does be proactive mean? It means work first, then play. And so you constantly remind kids of that. And where it really helps parents is For example, a child goes home and they go out and they play in the yard and they come in and they're really tired and they don't want to do their homework. And it's okay if you feel like intentionally you want to go out and play and then come back and do the homework. But if you're too tired, the parent can go, "Hey, was that being proactive?" And if your kids understand those words, it's not it's a reflection for them, right? Well, maybe I should have done some of my homework before I went outside and played. And we try to help coach our parents in that, because sometimes in life it's not with any judgment, it's just asking the right questions, right?
Mhm.
And look, that be proactive, just like that's a good example for a child. In my own work, I have to be I have to be reflective and go, well, Hollis Milton, are you being reactive or are you being proactive, right? Did you think about this? Did you put first things first? Did
Yeah.
you do what you needed to do? And again, it's not, it doesn't have to be judgmental. It has to be learning, how do we learn? And we've all come short. We've all come short of the glory of God. We've all made plenty of mistakes. And sometimes you just got to reflect and go, okay, I got to learn from this, right? And I can be a model for others. And even in our meetings, I tell my people all the time, look, we made this decision, several years ago or whenever it happened. And you know what? I've reflected on this. Maybe that wasn't the right decision. Maybe we need to do things better. So it's always constantly learning, always asking yourself, what can we do to be better? And I think that's a good model for kids. Kids are going to make mistakes. Let's explain to them what the mistake is, with the whole goal of preventing them from making the same mistake again. And I think that's life. I think that's a big life lesson that we all have to model and learn, and a great lesson we can teach our kids.
Yeah. Them knowing there's going to be adjustments. And I'm going to tell you that what you're doing with your team, obviously you see it happening, but the vulnerability of the leader sitting down and going, "Hey, I think y'all have got some great intel, some great information. I didn't say this stuff was set in stone. We actually need to change this." And then their feedback creates more buy in, and more buy in allows the team to move faster and better and smarter. And plus, to think proactively too, like, what's the next 10 steps with this parent? What generally happens? What did we do last time that affected this kiddo that certain way? So that's where we're constantly programming, moving, and becoming proactive to be better leaders, because we are the professionals in these people's lives. They're not the professionals. They're asking for us to step up and do the right things. So partnering and using the 7 habits of highly effective people as a vehicle to harness and carry that relationship with your teachers and students is super, super cool. You said there is, you were talking about 3 lighthouse schools. What do you mean by that?
So Baines Lower, Baines Elementary, and West Feliciana Middle School are all internationally recognized as lighthouses for other schools in teaching leadership to students. We also do a lot of the same work at the high school, but we've modified it just because as the students become so proficient with these habits, we've made some really good changes there, because they're learning and they're mastering them. So we do it a little differently, but all the schools teach it. And one of the key things I think that makes a leader really good, and I'm still learning this, because it's a skill that I hope that I can master one day. But it's one of the habits is is listening skills. Being an active and empathetic listener. And I think all of us in life have to build that skill, because sometimes what our strength can be is we're a problem solver. So we're quick to listen to somebody, but not really listen enough or really understand, because we're already trying to solve the problem. And I have learned over the years, be an active listener, which means listen to their words carefully, not even be trying to think of what my response is yet. That can come, but I need to really listen to them. But I also need to be empathetic. I need to hear their emotions in it. What are they passionate about? And really understand the context of it. And so that didn't come to me naturally. And I am still learning that. I'm still growing in that area. But I think as a part of customer service and as a part of what we do, in serving people, we've got to be really good active listeners. We've got to be empathetic listeners if we're truly going to help someone solve the dilemma that they're facing. And I think that really comes down. We teach that a lot in Leader and Me, and the adult version is what seek first to understand, then to be understood. Well, in simple kid language is listen first before you talk,
Mm.
right? And and that's a skill that we all have to work through. And even when you think you're really good at it, sometimes you have to reflect and go, "Gosh, that circumstance was really challenging. Did I really listen? And did I do it as well?" But I think the more you reflect on it and the more you work at it, the better you get that skill set. And in your business, just like mine and most people's business, it's about relationships and good communication. And the key to really good relationships, good customer service, good communication, all really starts with listening and
Mm.
being very good listeners. And I think that's a constant reminder to myself and to my team. We've got to start there first.
Yeah, I love that, and that's what heck, I've even learned in my marriage. I mean, it's everywhere. You know, we want to come in. I'm sure you've seen the video of the husband and the couch sitting. I'm sorry, the husband and the the wife, not the couch, sitting on the couch, and she's got that nail sticking out of her head, and she's looking and she's telling him like, "I just want you to listen to me," and he's like, "Well, if you just let me." You know, he's reaching for that nail. And we even learned that with our wives. Like, how do we level up our marriage? Well, we've got to listen to our spouse, and that feeds people. Think of a little person when you're listening to my Finley, she's 7 years old. If I just sit there and talk and get across my point, as soon as they tell me something, they turn off, like they're gone. But if I sit there and listen to them, and then I ask them, well, tell me more about that. And then I say, well, basically, what I'm hearing you say is they know that a person that's sitting in front of them loves them. So, yeah, I hope that's where you hit on that. And I didn't even have it in my notes. It was the biggest topic. I meant to start off with that when we started. Listening is the top leadership skill that I've been pushing in 2024. Just starting off this year, hey, just listen to your people, and it will tell you, because you have a second nature to you. Your system kicks in when you understand what's going on, because based off your experience, you've been programmed into a way that you can help somebody. But the only way is like Shally Daniel. When I walk in his office, and I don't walk in there and Shally goes, well, hey, man, you just need to take some Tylenol and get on down the road. He listens to me. Your doctor listens to you in order to prescribe and to help you. So thank you so much. And if you want to bring that up again anytime in the remaining part of this conversation, I love listening skills.
And look, and while we're on that, just mention that because you mentioned Shally and Dr. Tim Lindsay is my doctor, and I think their clinic does a lot of this, and they're really good. And I think with empathetic listeners, they're very holistic in nature. And I think for those doctors, they do such a great job of that. And I think it does speak to the medical profession. So many times when I speak to our students, one of my favorite topics to talk to them about is, I had a massive heart attack in 2014. And so I talk to our students that are going in the medical pathways. And as much time as I spend on the experience and we're able to show them actually medically what's happening to me, one of the things I mentioned to them is that empathetic listening. Just because I'm reminded of how great really good doctors are. Really good doctors are very holistic because they are listening for things that are very much environmental. And the simple example, I'm not a medical professional, but just to explain, high blood pressure, many times, what is the cause of high blood pressure? It's stress, right? So if I only treat the patient and with medicine to control blood pressure, but I don't at least have a conversation to go, and I think our doctors are really good, holistic doctors are good at this, and kind of hearing the context of that. They still may prescribe you the blood pressure medicine, but they're also talking to you maybe about how do you manage your stress, right? And the only way a doctor gets there, or for any of us dealing with our customers, is to be so empathetic that we're listening for all of those other pieces to the puzzle that might be part of the dilemma.
Mm.
And I think in order to be a good problem solver, a good leader, um, it all starts with that listening piece.
Yeah, and you rolled right into my next question, which is not really a question. It's just you're talking about, you know, how they helped you during 2014, I believe it was. I don't want to leave listening just straight into this question. Listening is so important. But when you started talking about, I didn't know you had a massive heart attack in 2014. I just think people, and I look like I'm older than you. I think people our age, I just don't think of heart attack. I mean, you're not a big, heavy fella. We're not out of shape, but the level of stress and things that's going on internally, we don't really know what it's doing. But could you share, like you shared with me in 2014, what was leading up to that massive heart attack? And then how were the doctors there, and how did the community support you during that time?
So 2014 was in the fall of 2014. It was actually in October. Normal day, just like all of us. You're just going about your day. And Cecil will reminded of, sometimes we just assume things. It's a normal day, and I'm just going to be dealing with whatever's on the calendar, whatever comes my way. And of course, I had no idea what was in store for me that day. I'm driving back from Baton Rouge. Context: the week before, I played in a basketball game, no problems, ran up and down a court for a fundraiser. All was well. That day, I'm just driving back from Baton Rouge, coming back to St. Francisville, start feeling chest pains. But most of my symptoms that were worse than the chest pains were just difficulty breathing, but also feeling nauseous. And I ignored the symptoms at first, like most men do, which is not wise. But I was not, I'm in disbelief. This is, I'm just ill. This is just something that's going to pass, and I've got my day in front of me, right? Well, I got to the point of really struggling so bad that I was able to seek medical attention. Special thanks to Dr. Tim Lindsay for that. And I got to the hospital, and I was really uh, overwhelmed when told, hey, I'd had a massive heart attack, and that they were going to have to bring me in and do a procedure to fix that. I was very fortunate to be able to come back without any heart damage, but the whole experience was obviously life changing, just from the reminder of uh, God is in control, God has the plan, and we're not always aware of that. So the gift of gratitude and time, and making sure that keeping your family a priority, staying close to your faith, all of those things, sort of that knowing doing gap that we have sometimes.
Mm.
We know, but we don't always do. All of those things came back to me in such a different way, with a deeper understanding because of the experience. Being in this community, the community outreach, the prayers, the support, everything, just like our community to be, was all there. Everybody went above and beyond to do anything to help me and my family. And just takeaways from that. First of all, for men, make sure that you don't ignore symptoms. You make sure that you do go to the doctor. I know many times for men, we don't like going to the doctor. We don't like sharing those things, but you never know, what your body may have in store for you. If you have major symptoms, please call 911 right away. Be humble about this. Be smart about it. You want to get up the next day. You want to see your family. You want to see your friends. You want to take care of your children. Make sure that you take a dose of humility, and call 911 if you have any indications like that. And again, in the aftermath, always remember to take advantage of every day. You're not promised tomorrow. We all say that. It becomes cliche until you have an incident like this and you really recognize, I can't count on tomorrow. I have today. What can I do with today? You
Mm,
know,
I like that. Was there, I had an amazing car wreck in 2019, and when I'm sitting on the stretcher in the back of the ambulance, just busted to pieces, we're both, we don't have any control over the two situations that me and you were given. But was there at any point where you had like a surreal moment that went, I can be a Debbie Downer right now, or I can be more inspiring to more people through what's happening to me right now? This was not on my schedule today, but that positivity and stuff that we spoke about, how big was that for you?
absolutely. So when I was in the ambulance, I knew something was really wrong, and I suspected, man, is this what a heart attack feels like? And they gave me aspirin, and when they gave me aspirin, I knew, okay, boy, I'm in really bad shape, and I may not make it. And so I just went to God in prayer, and I had the most amount of peace that I ever had in my life. Although you're so afraid, you don't know what's going to happen. You're thinking about your children and your family, what would happen to you and how would they respond. But I also had a deep peace. It was just a great conversation, just me praying to God and being so grateful for my life, and just going through these processes and thinking, if I do get this opportunity, if I do get to tomorrow, what will I do with it? How will I be different? And I have kept that. And again, I do smile a lot. I'm just one of those people that I find a reason to smile, and sometimes in a very stressful situation, even with my team, I will say something light to them to just get a smile out of them, because
Mm,
sometimes in life we need to see the bigger picture. We can let our troubles bring us down, and yet even with our troubles, there's so much good.
mm,
There's so many things to be grateful for. And it's, this too shall pass. And so let's not get too low about something. Let's dig in and try to figure out how we solve it, the issue at hand. But let's have some joy too, because every day find a way to bring life full of joy and bring joy around people. I think there's a plan, and God entrusts us with that. We need to uplift people. We need to be a light for others, and let's bring joy to people.
mhm.
And so that's a big part for me. And the last thing I'll say on it, when I pray at night, part of my reflection is God. I met a new student or a new parent, or this situation came to me, and Lord, I know it came for a reason. Please help guide me what to do with it. How do it was all intentional. How did I meet this person? And so that was also just sort of a piece that, as I learned from that major 2014 incident, much like you, I know with what you experienced, it changes you, and you leverage that to change you for the better. And the heart attack, to survive it and to learn from it, is a part of my journey, and a part of my spiritual journey, and a part of my growth in life. And I believe it's made me a better person.
Yeah, I the same. I look at it as it was horrible, it was tough, but I look at it as a blessing. And, my hip, my body isn't the same. I've got a kind of a patched hip, and the pain every day just not reminds me, hey, this stinks, or, I wish I still had my other leg back, but I still have a leg. I still have toes. I mean, I go in the gym, and sometimes people come in there in wheelchairs to work out, um, with different limitations to them. I've still got everything, but it reminds me of God's grace through that situation, that even that tough situation turned out to be a blessing, not just for me, but for my family and the people that, I was surrounded with at the time. And even that story, you sharing your story and me sharing mine with people, it still inspires people that may think they're in a tough situation or may think they don't need to get a health check. Ignore those things because they're just being a man. Like they're just kind of tough through it. But we know otherwise.
Well, and I'll tell you this too, and it's a little different, but it's because it's a lighter version because of what you went through. But I tell my kids this sometimes. I'll tell them, "Well, that's going to make a good grandpa or grandma story for you. Don't worry, that's going to be one day that happened to you. But what you'll be able to teach your children, but also your grandchildren." And we all have those stories. And I was blessed to have to be around my grandparents who could remind me and say, back when I was a kid, this happened, and when you're looking back 60 years from now, look, it was awful when something happened to you when you were 10.
Yeah.
However, it could be at that point that you tell it with such grace and even a little bit of joy, a smile, and you're able to teach your kids, how to go through adversity,
Mm.
how to persist through. And I know through your tough situation, which is definitely not as a lighter version for all the struggles, but you stepping up every day, doing the things you did, you didn't even know it at times. You're just trying to survive. But truly, what you're doing is modeling for your kids,
Mm.
hey, we're all going to go through adversity. And how do we handle that? How do we get back up? How do we keep moving? And sometimes we have to remind ourselves as adults is, we have such a big positive impact we could make is how do we handle that situation when our kids are watching? Because if we handle it the right way, which is not easy, what a great blessing and impact it's going to have on them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I agree. I just, we keep hearing these words: legacy, culture, positivity. Like we're not trying to, Hollis and I are not trying to recreate the wheel. We're telling you to grab these light posts in your life and hold them tight. The only thing we could do from our accidents and health is just focus on positivity and know the legacy that our family, that we'll create inside of our family, in our schools, everywhere. The last topic I want to talk about today, and I had a big star by it when we did our lunch. It's let's see how I worded this. You spoke about marriage growth and improvements in households, what that does for kids, and how it shows up in the kids at school. Tell us about that, and then maybe something parents could be intentional with. It's something simple for that. My guys always tell me I go too long on the questions, and I do because I got so much I want you to talk about, and I want to make sure it impacts that mom or that dad out there. But marriage is important. The improvements in the household are important. How does that show up at school, and how can parents be more proactive at home with that?
Yeah, I think the greatest thing, just with your children is unconditional love, and I think with unconditional love, it doesn't mean you're going to have not have your ups and downs. And look, you're going to make mistakes as parents. I have made plenty of them, and still continue. It's not easy being a parent, but you've got to learn to forgive yourself. And I think
Mm.
in order to learn to forgive yourself helps your kids forgive themselves when they fail and they make mistakes, and recognize that we're all just learning. I don't even like to use the word fail. I like to use the word that we're always learning, we're always growing, and so I think for parents, as much structure as you can provide at home, as much consistency that you can provide. You're not always going to get it right, but coming from a structured environment where there are some rules and that you reinforce those rules and that you try to do your best to share why you do those rules, why they're important, and get your kids buy-in on that is awesome. We'll continue to talk about that listening. Make sure that you listen to your kids. Sometimes you just need to let them vent, even when you don't even agree, you just let them vent because they need somebody to have a voice and to say. And a lot of times, all of us, sometimes when we vent, eventually we'll say, I was even partially wrong or I was completely wrong, but the situation. So having a safe place where kids can feel unconditional love, they do have structures and rules, but they also have a voice in the home and they can talk through things. Those are keys to success. I believe when families do that, their children are going to persist in school. They're going to know how to follow rules. They're going to understand how to admit that they've made a mistake. They're going to understand how to learn from it. And so maybe I'll even leave with this. I remind my kids all the time about, when you're thinking of a car has a rear view mirror. That rear view mirror is very important for you to look at, and to make sure that you look to see what's coming up behind you and things like that. But you can't just totally focus on the rear view mirror, because that would be dangerous. And in life, you miss all the opportunities in front of you if you stay focused on the rear view mirror. Simple point is, gotta let things go. You're going to make mistakes, learn from them. That's why you have the rear view mirror. However, you want to look out the front mirror, because that's where all your opportunities are. That's where you have the ability to navigate and change. And I think that's where we all are in life. And I remind people that if you stay focused on that rear view mirror too long, you probably will become bitter and you're less likely to change.
Hmm.
Learn from it, grow from it, and keep moving forward. And occasionally just ask for forgiveness. I find if you just tell somebody, look, I'm sorry, I messed that up, or I was impatient, most people will forgive you, and at some point are ready to move on and will respect you for it. So those are some of the things that I talk to my kids about a lot. And I also am willing to admit to them that, hey, I didn't get something right. Maybe I was impatient today, or I brought something that was that's my problem, and I allowed that to affect how I was handling something. I think those are just good, honest conversations that you can have with your kids that will make them better, and make them resilient. And we need our young people to be resilient, just as we need to be resilient.
I love that. Thanks for ending with that. I think that's something pretty powerful that people can hit the 15 seconds a couple times backwards, and just forgiveness, like, is so big. I mean, it's what Jesus does for us every day. And then letting your kids know if you made a mistake, hey, I'm sorry, and I'll do better next time. Tells them it's okay to make a mistake. Well, thank you, Hollis, for coming on today. I wish I could hang out with you for a couple more hours. We'll have to do a few more lunches, because you're my kind of people. You are the average of the 5 people you hang around with, right? And you're definitely at most times one of my 5 people. Whether I'm seeing you on social media, what you're doing there at that lunch, you have impacted my life. So I am super, super grateful, sir.
Hey, the feeling's mutual. You have made me better, and I'm grateful for this and what all you're doing to share the positivity. And you've sent me some just great quotes and just text messages, simple things that honestly I don't know if you. I just want to remind you. I hope you know, but they've made a big impact on me, and I've looked at them and go, man, I really needed to hear that today. That was just perfect for me. So thank you for making my day and making many of my days through many of the things that you're doing. I'm super grateful as well.
Well, thank you. And I also, I don't do it often enough, but I want to thank the Creighton Brothers production. Obviously, I don't know how to put these things together, but they do a wonderful job. With me and Hollis would have done a FaceTime call, and I would have just recorded it, or a Zoom call is about the extent of my capabilities. So if you're out there and you're looking to get your story out or do things that inspire others, we'll make sure to put a link in the comments below to Creighton Brothers Productions. 2 wonderful guys. So as always, thanks for listening. We appreciate you. Share this podcast anywhere on social media, in a text. Give us 5 stars. It's how we get our word out. It's how we continue to grow the podcast. And there's somebody out there that needs some inspiration. So as always, go serve someone well today, so we all get better together.